Well, hello everyone. This is David Madison. I'm the Executive Director of SAES, and I'm joined today by the Director of Professional Development, Mary Catherine Duffy. Mary Catherine, good morning.
Hi, everyone. We're glad
Oh,
y'all are here.
well, welcome. Our topic today is technology, instruction, and change, identifying a roadmap to success. The Q&A box, make sure you use actually, we're going to use the chat box for this session. It's a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as they come up. I think you're going to find this is a little more interactive than lots of our webinars, but of course the chat stream is open if you'd like to utilize that as well. And we are recording today, so we'll make sure that a recording is available. And welcome to everyone who is joining us through the webinar library. Welcome. And I'm just going to turn it over to Mary Catherine to introduce our program today.
You guys, we're glad to have Julie Emery Johnson and Lisa Lawrence. They are from Birmingham, Alabama, and they have a consulting company called Inside Voices. And they're going to just, I'm going to let them tell them a little bit more about themselves. But Julie and Lisa, we're really honored to have you and are looking forward to this webinar.
Thank you. So just to go ahead and clarify, we are in the same room, but we are using two tools today, and it just helps us. We're using one speaker. So it just helps us to kind of be able to navigate the technology that way, but it does look a little weird. So I just wanted to just go ahead and knock that out. We're in a bubble, so we're being super careful with our families, and we're together most of the time. So we're practicing all the safety precautions. I am Julie Emery Johnson. I'm the former superintendent of the Catholic Schools of the Diocese of Birmingham and formerly of the Alabama State Department of Education. Lisa and I work together at the diocese, and we have always had big dreams of really reorienting educators back to that joyful place that led them into education in the first place. But you can't have and keep joy if you don't have good solutions to some of the more pressing problems. And we also find that educators are creatures of community and fellowship and collaboration. And so we kind of put our heads together and decided to do that. So we have formed a consulting firm, which is called Inside Voices, really because our perfect client came along as we were, sort of dreaming this magical dream. And so our perfect client is Educate, and that's really who we're going to talk to you about today. We focus about 90% of our time on Educate. So we'll share with you about them in a little while. I do want to mention that Inside Voices, our true goal with that is to provide a forum for educators to come together. We will be curating resources, including research. I'm in the middle of a dissertation. Lisa's finishing up a program at Stanford as well. So December 1st, Inside Voices launches. Encourage your teachers and you yourself. We'd love to have you on our visit our site, contribute to the site. We'll be doing interviews and live question and answer and things like that. Just trying to provide solutions in a positive form for educators. So we hope you'll be able to join us at some point after December 1st. It's insidevoicesonline.com.
You may wonder why, we found out about SAES, and it happens to be that I know David Madison from a few years ago when we joined at All Saints Episcopal School as teachers initially. So that was way back in 2000, I guess. My background's in history and religion, and I joined as an English teacher and I joined as an English teacher at All Saints Episcopal in 2004. And so
2004.
Yes, it's 2004. So it seems a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And then subsequently became the academic dean there. So I've known, a lot of my profession was spent being built in the Episcopal school arena, and I'm really grateful for all the learning and development that I received when I was there. So that's my connection, and Julie kind of gave you a little bit more of my bio. I've also worked in international schools, but most of my experience is in the independent school arena.
So today's session, today's session is going to be super interactive and lots of fun. We're going to be using a tool called Mural. You guys wave if you've used Mural before or even ever heard of it. That's how we felt when we heard about it. And you're going to, part of our senior leadership team is going to be joining us about midway through today. And he actually designed this session. And we were just so excited about it. We were like, where was this all of our lives when we were administrators? But it's an iterative process that takes you through multiple steps, thinking about the same topic so that you can define action. Okay, so you're thinking about a problem in various degrees until you define action. It's really fun. And that's why we have 2 screens. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm just going to start with a little background information. If I can y'all see my screen? Everybody see my screen? And I'm going to minimize everybody's pretty pictures just so I can stay oriented here. We're excited to be working with y'all this morning. And why am I not moving? There we go. Lisa's going to share a little bit about Educate and about their mission, and take it away.
Really, Educate's mission is what all of our missions is. It's really to ensure that we're providing a really meaningful and relevant learning experience, and that learning experience is rooted in, as educators in a faith-based community, we really wanted that learning experience to be rooted in something more than just content, right? And so, Educate believes that really school is a place where you're able to come together in community, and where all voices should be heard. And some of our major goals with students should be to deepen their critical thinking and to really bring them to the joy of learning, right? Help instill in them a passion for and a joy for learning. And so Educate believes that they can do that by helping educators activate communities that spark some meaningful change, where you're bringing together cohorts of learners, and you're putting together diverse and interconnected teams that are helping to facilitate an educational impact, and really looking at best practices. When we get in our classrooms, sometimes we are closing the door and we're just doing that lesson that we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And some of the challenge for our teachers is being supported to really push them toward lessons that generate higher order thinking, authentic learning experiences, where the student is a participant in the co-creation of knowledge, where they're asked to reflect on their learning experience and what it was that helped them move forward or didn't, through a metacognitive process, where students have some choice about how they'll be assessed or how they're going to present their knowledge. And then, of course, Educate was really started because the founders recognized that teachers, it was founded about 20 years ago in New York, and it was founded because they recognized that teachers had all this technology and all these programs, but the way that those teachers were able to engage with those programs and how they do their actual teaching was not necessarily congruent. And so they were struggling with how to integrate their pedagogy, which we have fantastic educators in the classroom who are really comfortable sometimes standing behind a podium, with maybe something that is a little less teacher-centered, and also gives the opportunity to integrate some tools that really can facilitate learning in terms of technology.
Yeah, so our process really is to activate communities to spark meaningful change. And the community piece, as Lisa mentioned, is hugely key. The elevator pitch for what Educate does is always that they're there to help teachers navigate the intersection between technology and instruction. And that's really the magic of this process and what happens. It's very customized and planning intensive. Starts on the school level, goes down to the teacher level so that you can really understand what each individual teacher needs with the context of the overall school vision and goals. And then the intense support begins. We'll show you in a minute a tool that we use to help measure impact. And then we really strive to share those practices school-wide because everybody has different needs. Everybody's receiving different intense support. It doesn't mean they need to hoard it within the four walls of their classroom. We encourage people to share what they're learning as they're learning it. So just a little bit, I'm not going to read all of this, but just to give you a sense of how things have shifted and just how we responded during COVID. As Lisa mentioned, Educate's a 20-year-old company that largely started in the Northeast. The two co-founders are from New York. And the process has always been somewhat integrated with, online tools, but there was always that human element because they did work mostly in the Northeast. They went into schools at some point and made that face-to-face connection. So the pivot to fully online was seamless. They actually immediately, beginning middle of March, schools started calling and booking full day ed camps, which are normally something that would happen in the summertime. Because teachers needed immediate and emergent support. And so these just a little bit here, and we'll share this with you guys later so that you can kind of go more in depth with those stats, but just to show you some of the work that we're doing right now in response to COVID. Educate's really, really centered on the why, and we're going to talk about your why today when we get into the interactive piece. But there's a list here of some of the sort of core values that we hold in everything we do, all of our meetings, all of our coaching sessions, all of our relationships. Today, we're really going to focus on plan with a focus on well-defined outcomes, because as the instructional leaders of your school, you really have to always think about those outcomes and what that looks like. We have a tool, as I mentioned, I sort of alluded to this earlier, that we have a tool that helps measure progress. The president of our company and the entire team have worked together over several years to develop the innovation spectrum. Our company president's amazing. She was part of the Columbia Teachers College. Her name is Stacy Schultz, and she's really spent a lot of time in her research thinking about this spectrum and then trying it out in schools and getting voices of administrators and instructional coaches to kind of inform this practice. So I'm going to pop out really quickly to the innovation spectrum and just show you what that looks like, because you're going to use it in a few minutes. Okay, so this is just the large scale overview. So the areas of focus are down the left side, and you can see those are our sort of larger areas of focus within the domains. Learner agency and access, deeper thinking and learning. And then the progression is across the top. So really thinking about where your school is, or even an individual teacher. Are you at the adoption, stage of higher order thinking, or have you moved across that spectrum to transformation, which ultimately is our goal? And then the cycle repeats itself, right? Because it's a circular process. It does break down into a rubric, and we're going to go into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to show you the bird's eye view of that tool and kind of how that roots our work. Okay. Sorry, I'm going so fast, but I do want to get us to the part where we can all just sort of jam together on Mural, and we're about there. So Lisa is going to go ahead and she's going to start getting her technology ready to share Mural with you. In a couple of minutes, not now, I'm going to share the link in the chat to Mural, and everybody is going to join us in the Mural. But before I do that, Lisa is actually going to share her screen, and she's going to take you on a tour around our workspace for today.
Actually, I may not be able to do that.
And
please, a second.
Okay, well, I'll give you a second to get that done. Through this process, we're going to start by letting you have some thinking time. And we don't want you to be intimidated by the technology. If you become a bit overwhelmed by how to move things around or how to write on your Post-it note, do not worry about it. It's not about that. You're going to have your own workspace within each of these pieces. We'll be able to see everybody working, but you'll have your own little dedicated space. And if it does become too overwhelming, just grab a pencil and paper, do it on the pencil and paper, and then as we talk about it, we can share out. But I think you're actually going to kind of like it.
I think we're just going to drop in.
You're gonna drop. Oh, go ahead, drop in.
Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna drop the shared whiteboard into the chat, and I'm gonna just ask
that's
for
that.
you to,
Not go there yet. Right.
well, no, go. I'm going to ask for you to go ahead and just make sure you can go into the chat.
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to pull this down. Grab my link.
And we will.
There we go. Right there.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it. This is a shared whiteboard. And in one area, there will be the innovation spectrum. And I'm going to ask you to think about your school with regard to the focus areas. And in another area, there's the actual rubric. There are 4 sections. And I'm going to ask you to do a self-assessment of sort of where your school is, and think about your experience with mural. The 3rd section is a road mapping section. And again, we're getting into sort of the iterative process of this tool.
And we'll talk you through each section as we go. We'll go together.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you some tips for how to navigate in this space. So the 3rd section is really where you're going to roadmap action for your school. And then the 4th section is a section where we're going to together sort of anticipate some challenges and maybe even consider what challenges we've been facing over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Etc. So
before we do that, because we're all about to become really good friends, let's take just a second. And if you haven't unmuted yourself, please do. And let's just take a second and I know we've already met David and Mary Catherine, but our other 2 participants, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you and your school, and then we'll grab that link and go ahead and head over to Mural. Does that work?
I see a couple people already in Mural.
Okay, that's fine.
Is everybody able to, you're please be in there.
Make Mural your big screen. I'm going to keep the presentation up in the background. You don't need it. You're not going to use my presentation right now.
Okay.
But just not to distract you, I'm sharing that screen and you can take Mural and make it big.
All right, so just so you know, on my screen, you only pop up, I don't see your face. You only pop up as little icons, like someone's a seahorse and someone what is that? Someone's an octopus. And I'm gonna share with you a couple of tips for how to navigate.
So let's let them introduce and tell us which icon.
Through Mural after we introduce.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. All right, who wants to go first?
I'll go.
My name is Tracy Lamon. I'm from St. Albans in Harlingen, Texas, and we have 2-year-olds through 6th grade here. And it looks like, I guess if I'm doing this right, I'm a squid.
Oh, you're a squid. Yeah, that's great.
And
Okay.
I'll go next. I'm Ashley McWayne. I'm with St. Luke's Episcopal School here in Baton Rouge. I am their director of instruction, and we are a pre-K 3 through 8th grade school. And I am the visiting seahorse.
All right. Okay.
And I apologize. I will have to slip out a little bit early. Something came up that is going to pull me away from this sooner than I expected.
You are fine, and you will have access to this mural as long as you have that link. So hopefully you can pop back in if you need to. All right. So
Thank you.
Lisa's going to get us ready to rock and roll. Okay.
Is that everybody?
Yeah. And David, what is your icon?
I'm the visiting koala.
Okay. And
Awesome.
so I guess Mary Catherine, that leaves you.
You're the gorilla.
You're the gorilla.
Okay.
How exciting.
Okay.
Okay. So here goes. Lisa's going to get us going.
All right, so if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see a blueprint. So just think of Mural as a digital whiteboard, and in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a blueprint. When you're going into a particular area, you really probably want to zoom in to about 25%. If you're at 100%, you're going to be lost in a white space somewhere in the area. In that tool. But if you click on your keypad or on your mouse pad, you should be able to move yourself around the mural by just moving the box in the blueprint. Okay, so think of this as a big piece of paper and you're moving yourself around. So I just want you to orient yourself in the space. Also, if you look up at the very top on the right-hand side, there's a pink box with little dots, right? That's going to open up an outline. So if you click on that, if everybody will sort of,
If you want
click-
to summon everybody, you can take them with you.
that's true.
Lisa is the boss of the mural, so she can summon you, which is kind of fun, right? And so she can take you on this little journey with her and show you where the pieces are.
Or I could just ask to be followed.
Yeah.
So up in the upper right-hand corner, there's an outline. And you click that outline open, it gives you sort of a navigation bar. And that navigation bar shows you the different sections we'll be working on. And those two pieces will keep you sort of centered on where we are if you get lost in the space. Also, you know, when you put two fingers on your keypad, that if you click, you can sort of move the space around. When you double click on a sticky note, it'll create a new sticky note. If you didn't mean to do that, you just hit undo. You can't mess up this workspace, so don't worry about that. We have a copy of it. If it gets messed up, it's okay. It's like somebody just erasing something off of a board. Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
So it won't hurt anything that we do today. So we're going to click on number 1, if you'll follow me, in the outline.
Yeah, identifying a focus area.
And
Thumbs up if you're with us.
I think so.
okay.
Okay,
Great.
good.
So for me, I need a little higher than, I need to zoom in just a little bit more than 25% because I don't have my readers on. But you might be comfortable, you know, zoomed in at 25% or 20%. So what I'd like for you to do is spend about 2 or 3 minutes really thinking through where your school might need to consider focusing. Like if you could choose 3 areas, select a color sticky note, and just, I'm going to choose this light purple up here. I might drag over here for me, co-creation of knowledge, the opportunity for the student and the teacher to facilitate discussion and activities where the learners are incorporating their own ideas and are able to solve some of their own misconceptions and create their own knowledge is an important piece. So if you think through maybe
Just
the
pick a
top
color and make that your color.
Yeah.
You don't have to write on them.
and just drag your sticky note over to maybe the top 3 for you or for your school, or maybe you're thinking about an individual teacher you'd like to facilitate growth with. It could be something you're working on with regard to your strategic planning process.
So we're going to give you just about 3 minutes to think about these. And I'm the timekeeper, so I'll set my timer.
There's really no wrong answer either, right?
Of course.
These are all things that we'd like to incorporate. All right, we're going to give you about
Another minute and a half. If you're all done, just give us a wave. We won't spend the time if we don't need it. Okay. Oops. All right.
All right, so our next step is really to start self-assessing, like where we really think we might be. And so if you'll go back to, if you've really mastered this, you can figure out how to move around with just your cursor. But for me, the first time I used this tool, I got lost in the white space a lot because I was thinking about the tool more than I was actually thinking about what we were doing on the tool. So if you want to think about what you're doing on the tool, I recommend going to the outline and just clicking self-assessment. And just know that this part is not being recorded. what you're doing on the whiteboard is not being recorded.
Yeah.
The only thing that's being recorded is your is the Zoom.
So your answers will not be, we won't hold them against you.
Right. And
I mentioned earlier about the innovation spectrum and how we would be zooming in to the rubric that we use to inform our work. This is a tool that we use with administrators, but also we use it with teachers so that they can think more deeply about the focus areas and really look at that rubric to assign where they believe that they are. So thinking from the previous section, you're going to take one of the focus areas that you picked for your school, and you're going to find that here on the sort of expanded innovation spectrum. And you're going to read through each of the descriptions, and you're going to place your sticky note in the area that you believe that you're in. So it starts at adoption, and it moves to adaptation, and then infusion, and then transformation. And that's the progression through sort of the more mature processes of each focus area.
You can click the sticky note on the left and then turn it into your color, or you can just
grab it from
you can just grab any. I mean, you can just
double clicking will give you a sticky note. Yeah. And you can change the color if you want.
And if you want to get really creative, the sticky note can be a circle.
This will give you just a minute or two on this. Thumbs up when you're ready. Oops.
Actually zoomed out of that.
Oop, that's my timer. Sorry, that was the other timer. I didn't realize I preset it. So everybody good?
Hey, I'm sorry. I may be lost.
Okay. Thank you for speaking up. Can you scroll down?
What are we doing on this page?
You're in this. So go to your outline.
Go up to the top right and see the
pink bulleted list.
The pink bulleted list. Click that open.
And then click on self-assessment.
Okay, I got that.
Okay. So now that you're there.
Oh, there we are.
In the previous section, you pulled a Post-it note over to the focus area, the 3 focus areas that you kind of thought were important for your school. Think about one of those and find it on the list. So if it's higher order thinking.
Are you having a problem finding the sticky notes?
I just trying to figure out what I'm doing next. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So that's exactly where you are. So you're going to figure out where you are.
I'm putting some sticky notes here.
Yep.
And you don't even have to worry about the color.
Now just drag it over and sit it on top of the box in the rubric that best describes your school in that focus area.
So obviously it's beginner.
You're totally fine.
No, we felt this way too.
We felt this way too. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but the tool kind of helps you not overthink the deep thinking that you're doing when you're thinking about these focus areas.
Can you see the whole self-assessment piece where you're looking at adoption through transformation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
good. Okay.
So we'll give you just a minute to think.
As you're doing this, the deep thinking and learning is really going to focus a little bit more on like those instructional challenges and goals that you have. And as you progress down to the bottom, really you're talking about how is collaboration happening in your classrooms, in your school, how is technology integration happening in your classrooms, in your school, and from a collaborative school community, are you coming together in those in learning communities, or do you have established cohorts thinking through critical issues and problems that you're facing?
I noticed that there's technology integration is kind of popular. Lisa and I talk about this a lot because we've both served on Cognia or formerly Advanced Ed review teams, and that is such a common area when you're looking at that tool, the Elliott tool, and you're thinking about some of those pieces that they use for their accreditation, and I'm sure yours has a key component as well. But technology integration, we've all gotten a real heavy dose in that, right? In the last 6 months, because what we thought we were doing really well, when it becomes where the learner owns it, it becomes a whole new ballgame, and you realize there's so many deeper layers to this process. So I'm not as familiar with your accreditation process, but that's something that we both found on our visits across the country on review teams.
And I'm not familiar with your current accreditation process, other than I've looked at some of your documents, but I did participate in that pretty heavily.
Yeah. Okay.
With All Saints Episcopal School.
So let's just take a second and just share out. So if you marked something on this area on the self-assessment and you're comfortable sharing, if you could just share where you put yourself and maybe what you were thinking when you picked that area, that phase.
Well, I'll go. And I'm also completely, I'm blending adult ed into this as well. So that
That's
completely is an interesting thing. But technology integration was one of the areas that I went to thinking about some of the adult ed pieces that we do. And I put us at the adaptation phase. That seemed to describe where we were. It's definitely enhanced by technology, primarily out of necessity right now. But when I think of our events, when I think of our conferences and the learning experiences that we're providing for adults, it's enhanced by technology. Technology is used to augment the process, but I didn't quite put us at learning experiences redesigned yet.
Right.
So I think for us, that's really trying to figure out how do we use technology to shift it into more than just lecture, if that makes sense.
Right.
More
And
than
really-
Zoom, right?
That part
or
about
beyond
heavily
the Zoom.
regulated, the part about
Yeah.
heavily regulated by the facilitator, that jumped out at me as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of where, from the adult ed pieces that we're doing and the professional development, the things we're doing, that's where I kind of ranked us on tech integration.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about that, David, is that you have to think of both sides, right? Like you have to think about as the facilitator, that piece, right? Because you have to be able to manage it and, use everybody's time well, but also what your participants are comfortable with. Like we've asked every one of you guys to step out of your comfort zone today and join us in Mural. But I think in the end, this won't contribute hopefully to your Zoom fatigue. It's something new today and maybe it feels a little different. And also in the end, hopefully you'll have something that you can take and just sort of reflect on and think about. So we're going to go ahead and move to the third part of our outline. So if you need to go back to the outline at the top.
I want to give Tracy
I'm
a
sorry.
chance to report
I
out.
skipped
Yeah.
you. I sure did. I apologize. Go ahead. I want you to share your area that you picked. I apologize.
Yeah, and it goes with technology. I think we've all had to go to all different types of technology we're using, but it's very much facilitator. I think we could be somewhat in the middle, but they're still learning so many ins and outs. And then everything's changed for them to have downtime to do professional development, to grow. They don't have the time they had last year because we've had to let people go that gave them breaks, the whole thing in a gamut. So there's a lot of still overwhelming things happening. As kids are knowing some more things at home that are doing things, do their Zooms during it, and the teachers panic. We're still in that beginning process of getting ourselves where we need to be in the middle.
May I ask a question about your school? Are y'all, are you hybrid or are you completely virtual? What's the state of your instruction right now?
So we have 80% back on campus and 30% still off campus. We do not have hybrids. You're either here or you're not. So we have, we have 36 kids at home on Zoom still.
Okay, and Zoom's your primary tool?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So through fourth grade, they use Seesaw, and then fifth and sixth use Google Classroom with Zoom.
Right. We're very familiar with both of those.
Mm-hmm.
We have.
Do you all have a learning? Are those the primary sort of learning management platforms that you're using?
Well, I would say it's more for if they need to send things through them. They're really teaching both groups through the day through Zoom. We're still doing some packet drop off and pickups, so we can have papers in their hands, because there's just some handwriting things that we need to have, not just through a computer.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of management techniques they're still trying to do without just going 100% technology,
Right.
which I think is part of our struggle too, with them having a lot of work on both sides and managing
Right.
it and facilitating through how to get everything and feel comfortable with those distant learners doing it on their own.
Right. Well,
And
and
being in elementary, I mean, it's different from the 4th to 6th grade. So
Oh, yeah, for sure.
some of the challenges that our traditional sensibility about professional development has been that people would leave school and go away and do some PD, and then come back, or sometimes it was sort of a sit and get. That's probably a very, very different paradigm than what Educate uses. They actually enter into the teacher's classroom oftentimes, and they'll come, it's job embedded. So they'll come to your school during your teacher's planning time or during a specified time that you have for professional development for your faculty. They can do this face-to-face during,
Regular
times, but they also can do this. They can do this in a virtual and remote setting in lots of different ways. And this next section, the road mapping section, each of the sticky notes that you'll see that are pre-typed, and I'll get there in just a sec, but those are different kinds of learning opportunities that the coaches can provide for your school. And they can do that in a job embedded way. So if you'll go to the outline, some of you are already there, but
Sorry, I was rushing us to the
Yeah.
road mapping there. Didn't mean to skip over you. I will kind of talk you through the pre-filled out Post-it notes, but they're not meant to limit you. So please, we just thought this was a good way to kind of just overview some of the things that Educate does.
well, and also you can choose the sticky note and actually type onto the sticky note something that fits your school or your community. So please feel free to do that. And again, you can't mess anything up. We have a copy of this whole thing. So at this point, really just feel free to.
Yeah, and I'm going to walk you through each of ours. And then once we do that, then Lisa will talk to you a little bit about the activity. So
Yeah,
looking at the green, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I also just wanted to note that Kyle from Educate is in our mural.
Welcome, Kyle.
Oh, good morning, everyone.
Name.
Hi, Kyle.
Kyle.
Hi,
Kyle
everyone.
is the one that we mentioned to you earlier that designed this whole process. So he'll probably have lots of good things to interject, but how's everybody feel about mural so far? Okay, that's how we felt the first time too.
First time we're like,
That's interesting.
I'm struggling with where to put my cursor.
Yeah.
You can send your complaints my way. It's not.
No,
it's not always
we
the most
love it.
straightforward tool. Yeah.
Well, we
It's
were
the next
saying
best thing.
thing.
Yeah. It's next best things to that traditional experience of everyone gathering around a table or a whiteboard and doing some good old fashioned collaborating. That looks a little bit different in this day and age. So Mural is one of those tools that's helping to, bridge us a little bit closer, right? So that we're discussing, but we're also engaging some tools for some more powerful collaboration. And yes, of course, you have to get over the barrier of how to use the tool and getting familiarized with it. But ultimately, at least we have found for tools like these, the benefits outweigh the costs of the learning cost. So thank you all for bearing with us and learning this new tool as you're also reflecting on your school goals. And thanks, Julie and Lisa, for having me here.
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
So just to kind of talk you through our pre-filled Post-its there. So school and district ed camps, and Kyle, please chime in to make sure. I feel like I'm kind of going to just gloss over these, but I want you to, from your perspective, add things as well. So the ed camps are really nice ways to bring your entire faculty, kind of to give them to ground them in a foundation. And it's
baseline.
Like a baseline, and it's the topic of that you choose for your school. We have done a series of ed camps recently. In August, we had a large group of schools go through ed camps, really just to be sure that they could kind of troubleshoot all of their things with Zoom, for example, or breakout rooms or Seesaw, like you mentioned earlier. Just really good ways to use those things and maybe to address any of the complications that they had in the spring.
We had
or
a
to
Google
learn,
101.
Yeah,
class.
Google 101. Learn some more of the advanced tools that they could use. so that they really were able to think about how they're teaching and not just the connective piece. Okay, and then for individualized coaching cycle, that's really the heart of Educate. We've talked a lot about it being relationship oriented and it being really customized. So again, they use the innovation spectrum to define like where they are and where they want to go, but it also is it's relational. So if a coach, you know, is meeting with a teacher that day and Susie's having a really difficult time and they're trying to figure out how to troubleshoot and make sure that they're reaching that child, they're going to take that minute and spend that time really, you know, addressing that immediate need that the teacher has. And right now, you know, providing that type of support to teachers who are just, you know, the frontline workers in the current situation, we think is really super meaningful. I think it's meaningful all the time, but I think right now, especially, teachers are really appreciating that level of support.
And so Educate provides, can provide one-on-one instruction for your teachers in your school. You could also decide that you have a grade level that needs some support with a specific aspect. Maybe it's technology, maybe it's co-creation of knowledge. You know, maybe it's
meaningful assessments.
Right. Maybe it's a particular goal that you have on your strategic plan with your school, and you need to be able to facilitate community in order to accomplish that goal. So there are a lot of different ways they can reach and help support your goals. Parent-based webinars is another. Some of the schools their parents have been really struggling with the challenges that they're facing with having students at home, especially during these sort of unprecedented times. And so Educate responded by developing parent webinars and also supporting teachers as they developed, which is really the goal, as they develop their own webinars for their school to help parents better understand how to navigate technology with their student. And then,
yeah, and so on those parent webinars, they can be, the Educate coach can be community facing, or they can really be teacher facing, helping the teachers design and deliver their own webinar. That's just been really very helpful in the current setting, but always, right? And then staff development, professional development, just really thinking about the vision of the leadership team or the grade level chairs or whatever structure that you have within the school. We've even recently been talking to a school that has a large number of teacher assistants, and with the use of technology, their teacher assistants needed some training. They needed some thinking around how to use the Chromebooks, and so that can happen. I mean, the good thing about Educate is that every member of the team is valued, and so we want to be sure that they all get the support that they need. We already talked a little bit about one-on-one or team coaching, leadership coaching and support. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. I have a slide about that, and I'll just kind of mention that as well. But again, it's about the vision casting and really helping support the leaders think through how they can support the entire community. And then we do have the online courses. I know we kind of alluded to that earlier, and David alluded to that about the challenge with adult learning. So our webinars can be done in two ways. They can be live, or they can be done where a participant does log in and go through the process, but they submit journals and artifacts for some feedback, and that makes it that adds that personal element so that it does feel like it really is just for them, and we're able to be sure that we're reaching the learner where they are, which I think is always the challenge with adult learning, right? Or any learning. Right.
So let me let you all sort of go back. If you maybe click back to your identifying focus. Number one, real quickly on the chart, and just think through, what was the number one focus that you had, or maybe how does that tie into a particular school goal that you are focusing on this year, maybe a professional goal. And then if you'll click back on the outline to road mapping, each of you you know, when I click on road mapping, it gives me this one workspace, but there are really 5 workspaces there. To see those, you want to zoom out, maybe to, I have to zoom out almost to 8% in order to see all the other workspaces there.
So claim a workspace.
So if you can claim a workspace and then sort of zoom in on that workspace. So I see one person on one, Kyle's showing us where another is.
And since we are such a small group, if we want to talk through these things, maybe we'll give you a minute to kind of think. You're going to be thinking about the circle at the beginning, the white circle under the Post-its, kind of where you are. And then you're going to be thinking about the one at the end where you would like to be. That's your first task within your workspace. Where, you know, what's the goal? And then, you know, where you want to be, where you see yourself. So once you claim your workspace, zoom in and think about the circle at the very beginning and the square at the end. And then we'll come back to the Post-its and talk about where to put those or how to work with those.
And the circle represents your goal, and the square at the very end is, you know, what do you think this looks like at the end? Like, how will you know that you're there?
If somebody has a really great answer to those, please speak up. Let's talk about it.
And the goal of the boxes in the in-between area is to think about what you need to do to get to that goal at the very end. But first, like, think about what the goal is and then what that might look like in the end. Take a minute or two, just really think through that.
Anybody having any difficulty typing in those, the circle and the square?
If you click on
I'm
the
having
square,
difficulty typing in the square.
okay. So if you click on the circle,
Yeah.
you'll see it highlights text.
Gotcha. I'm with you. I'm with you now.
And you can change that. If it's too much, please don't let it get in the way of your thinking process.
Yeah.
We're going to just do some drag and drop here in a minute. If it's easier for you just to think about it, or maybe talk about it with us, what your goals, you know, what goal you might have chosen and what that might look like in the end, we can talk about that. I don't want you to get lost in the tool.
Once you have that, whoever's ready, just share. Let us know what you're thinking. Anybody want to share one of their goals? The goal they picked to work on?
I'll share. I mean, one of our goals is to create a full online course. We're doing online webinars right now. We're doing, you know, different pieces, but developing a comprehensive online course on some of the different topics that we address.
Okay. So what would that look like in the end? Like, how would that look to the recipient of that? Or how would that look if you felt like you would accomplish that goal?
Well, the course is up, running, being offered, and being used as a way for them to get information on governance or information on whatever topic they're seeking more mastery on.
Okay. So now you're going to look at the green Post-it notes. We have some pre-filled and some that you can just click on and type in. And so think about those 4 blocks, the 4 steps in between. You've established your goal. What are the stepping stones going to be to get you there? What are tools that you think would maybe catapult you towards that goal?
Well, and for your instance, it would be, you know, what sort of support would you need at SAS to facilitate your learning in order to be
Right.
able to build that course?
Or help building the course.
And how could you maybe collaboratively work with other schools to help build the course to support their needs, et cetera?
Right.
And how could what sort of support do you need in the development of that?
So while you're thinking about your middle steps, anybody else want to share their goal?
Well, my goals are David's goals, so I'm
How
working.
about you? How about your school? What are you thinking about for your, I know it's a little bit different because having 2-year-olds to 6th grade, your goals are probably going to be pretty broad, but
All over, yeah.
is there a particular goal that you want to think about?
Are you talking to me? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm stuck on trying to figure it out. I'm doing exactly what you said not to do, which is getting stuck on the tool.
Tracy,
problem.
don't worry about that at all. Just use your pencil and paper
I
and
have. I
Tracy,
got
I'm
my
doing
whole
this. I'm
paper.
doing the same thing. There's too many
I got-
bright colors for me to
I
play
know.
with, and so
Mine is just the student choice, and at the end goal, where a student-led room where teachers facilitating, but the students, and we follow the RICE program in preschool, so it goes even from our 4s through our 3s up as far as
Right.
student-led drama centers, things like that. But it's really across the board. We want to continue building that and how to get where those classrooms that teachers, not the front lecturing and things like that.
yeah, guide on the side, as they say.
And so what do you imagine that would look like?
The steps you
at
need to
the-
take.
Well, yeah, what do you imagine that would look like at the end? How would you know that your teachers are offering?
Walking in the classroom and seeing it. I mean, seeing the teachers, the students leading that room, the teachers in charge, the kids, students being leading.
The agency.
And then what sort of support do you think your teachers need in order to, go from someone who would be more leading the class, up at the front versus the student choosing maybe different areas where they can focus on their learning?
Yeah, I mean, more training, right? Student development, staff development, things like professional development, individualized instruction, things like that with the teachers, coaching.
Yeah. So, the good thing about it is like when you kind of latch back to that innovation spectrum and you're thinking about where they are in the adoption, adaptation, all the way to transformation phase, really identifying those natural steps that are going to just keep moving them down that progression. If you think that through and the supports are there, it can happen very naturally and it can be super empowering. So what would be kind of interesting is if you did walk into a classroom and you saw that student agency, I think a demonstration of teacher agency would be that they allowed that to happen, right? Like they gave up that control, that they're owning that they're making that change or whatever, because they had the right kind of support. Because there's nothing worse than walking into a room where it's artificially being demonstrated, right? Where the teacher really is still kind of controlling things, but they know that's what you want. And so that's why we really appreciate the meaningful relationships that are, come out of coaching particularly. All right. So Lisa.
So I think we're going to have to, we're going to be out of time here in not too long.
Yeah, we have about 4 minutes left.
And so we may leave you to think on your own and anticipate some roadblocks on your own. But as you're thinking through, the roadblocks to getting to your goal, maybe think about what solutions you've already tried. Think about what sort of roadblocks you've already encountered along the way. And then if there are other solutions you might be willing to try. Those are some 3 areas for reflection we'd like to sort of just leave you with. In order for you to understand also some of the other tools that we might be able to use to support you in that process, we're going to flip through, we're going to add to and go back to the presentation.
Really quickly, if I can get myself organized. So I'm still sharing. So everybody, if you'll just go out of your mural and back to your presentation. And then I am going to just move through some of this. So the good thing about this is, and you'll appreciate this after your experience, right, with mural, is that we work with all learners, no matter if they're the most advanced or if they're a novice in a tool or trying out a strategy. And so it's very differentiated based on, you know, where the person is and kind of how comfortable they feel with whatever the process is that we're addressing. So if you're not the most techie person, or maybe you're trying a new tool like Mural that you've never used before, that's okay. Like, that's exactly, our coaches are there to meet the learner right where they are, and to be sure that not only do they feel confident, but that they feel like they can go apply and use it. And then that next session will be about how that happened. So it's really experience-based.
And our coaches,
which is different.
So we have offerings for webinars and online courses. Our coaches will really work one-on-one with your school to establish a plan and to look at all the different supports that your school might need. And so they'll consider whether, you know, they may, you know, talk with you about the fact that your goal is student choice and what's the best way to help get your teachers along this pathway toward reaching your goal. And they'll do that. They can do that in a variety of different ways, but they'll do that in conversation with you as the lead of your school, and in a way that will support the vision that you are trying to bring about in your school community.
And I just want to end with one last thing. So as we think about the different pieces that we provide, that social and emotional learning piece, I have a little arrow there pointing to building parent and teacher partnerships. We don't know what the future holds. I mean, goodness, we don't even know what next week holds. So as we're thinking about, you know, this time that you have, I think you mentioned, Tracy, you have all but 80 something kids in school. This is a really good time to reinforce those parent-teacher partnerships and to be thinking, in case you do have to, you know, sort of pivot to everybody being back home, kind of thinking about how to lay those routines. And so that's something that we've been really zeroing in on. And if you would like to continue the conversation about some of those helpful strategies, we'll probably be sharing just some emails, but we're happy to have, you know, even a conversation just with some tips on how you can kind of integrate that into just helpful tips of how teachers can integrate that into some of their practices while they have access, right? And this is a little bit about leadership. We're going to share this with you all. I know we're running out of time, but this is our contact information. And we're so happy to have had spent this time with you today. Hope it was helpful. Would love some feedback. And David, with that, or Mary Catherine, we thank you and we turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you, Lisa. And again, their contact information is on the screen. And for everyone that's joining us from the webinar library, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.